Hey, good morning, y'all. Thank you for tapping in for some real talk from the heart this morning. We are reading through the Bible twice per year, 7 chapters per day. It's about an hour of reading. I'm hopping on here and sharing devotion from one of the chapters. And this morning's devotion is from Proverbs 14. Today is the 14th. And so Proverbs 14, verse 14. Let me read this and we'll get into our real talk this morning. It says, the backslider in heart will be filled with his own ways, but a good man will be satisfied from above. Sitting here just meditating on this verse here, thinking about, the topic of being backslidden. I know it's not a word that we hear a lot nowadays. It's not something that's actually preached on a lot of days. I remember growing up as a young believer, you would hear a lot of messages on being a backslidden Christian, right? And but nowadays, not so much. But here, Proverbs 14, it says that a backslider in heart is going to be filled with his own ways. So I want to talk about that just briefly. But this verse, this proverb describes two types of people. It describes a backslidden person, and then it describes it says a good man, right? A good person. Really what it's describing is two conditions of the heart. There's the backslidden heart that pursues, right, selfishness and self-pleasure and self-will. And then there's the other heart that is satisfied in the Lord, right? It pursues a satisfaction in the Lord. And so when I look at these two things, it brings the question up, right? Am I backslidden? And how do I determine whether or not my heart has become backslidden? Now I want you to notice that it says the backslider in heart, right? That's where backsliding begins. Backsliding always begins in the heart. It's when the heart begins to give itself to just selfish pleasure, man, self-will. They make life all about them. They buy the lie, right? Just do you. That's when the heart begins to draw back, and that's what the word real backsliding means. It means you begin to fall back. You're sliding backwards and not going towards the Lord. You're sliding back from the Lord, and you're finding satisfaction in things really apart from Him, and that becomes life's pursuit. Am I filled with my own ways, or am I filled with God's ways, right? This is the question we got to ask ourselves. Is my life filled with my own ways, doing my own thing? Or is my life filled with doing God's things, right? Filled with God's ways. He says here, the backslider in heart will be filled with his own ways. What is your life filled with? Your own ways? Or is your life filled with God's ways? He says here that a good man will be satisfied from above. Am I satisfied? Am I satisfied from above? Or am I living for worldly satisfaction? Right? These are questions that will determine on whether or not, right, I am a backslidden person, or I'm in, right, good standing with God. I'm living right before God. Right? I'm living from what He's done for me. Right? I'm responding to His grace by finding satisfaction in Him. Or am I, again, pursuing, worldly pleasures and selfish things? A mark of backsliding is that your heart is filled with just satisfying yourself, man. You've made life all about you, and that can happen, man. That can happen. If we're not careful, we'll lose our sense of awe of God, and we will not be tapped in, right, and tuned in to Him, and we'll begin to tap into this world and try to find satisfaction in this world, which of course we all know doesn't happen. Instead of being, tapped into Him. Now, God's man is satisfied in pleasing God. Right? A good man is satisfied from above. God's woman, she will find her satisfaction in living a life that pleases God. Right? When John chapter 4, Jesus comes to, of course, Samaria, and there's the woman at the well, and the disciples go off to find some food or get some food, and they come back, and he's, they say, Lord, eat. And he's like, no, I'm good. And they're like, what's going on? He says, I have food which you don't know of. In other words, he has a different source of satisfaction. You see, the world, right, tries to find its satisfaction here below. You can read about that in Ecclesiastes. Solomon, right, who also wrote Proverbs 14:14. This probably is Solomon's testimony, right? A backslidden heart, filled with his own ways, but a man satisfied from above. Solomon knew that personally. But in Ecclesiastes, he writes that people who try to find satisfaction in this world, who try to find meaning of life in this world, right, filled with their own ways, he says it's all just like trying to grab a handful of wind. It ain't gonna happen, right? It ain't gonna happen. Grasping for the wind, vanity of vanities, right? Ultimate emptiness, he says. And so listen, the backslidden heart will find itself in desolation. But the heart that is pursuing satisfaction in the Lord, right, it's gonna find, man, fulfillment. And so I want to ask you again, man, listen, examine your heart. And is your heart backslidden? Have you allowed your heart to become so worldly consumed that you no longer pursue satisfaction from above? Man, that's something that we got to consider in our hearts today, because it can happen to any of us. And sometimes it happens subtly as we let go of the things that matter and we begin to pick up things that don't matter. It can happen very easily. Hey, the Lord loves you. I love you too. Man, I'm praying for you. Please be praying for me. I hope you have a great day today. I want to ask you to please be praying for a special friend, Yoli, for your family member who is diagnosed with cancer. Praying for you, Yoli, praying for your family, and praying for your family member. And I'm going to ask those of you watching today, please lift up Yoli's family member in prayer as they battle cancer, and pray in the mighty name of Jesus Christ for healing. All right. God bless y'all, man. Talk to you guys again tomorrow.